G'day folks, welcome to another video. This is number 3 in the Bush Pilots of Botswana series. We're back at Maun Airport, the Bush Pilots main international airport in southern Botswana, where the tourists arrive and then are ferried out to the camps by bush plane. Today we're going to visit Nxai camp, which is probably one of the furthest away. It's 71 miles, supposedly about 40 minutes in the aircraft, but I think we'll do it a little bit less. The weather today in Maun was not great, very low cloud base, heavy clouds and hot, and some rainy conditions were on the way. So we've loaded the same time, and I've essentially changed the weather so you'll get a chance to look at the ground and not be interfered with by the clouds. Everything's VFR out here, so technically, although the bush pilots take off in pretty much any weather and attempt to get wherever they can, because they use a GPS like I'm going to be using today. Realistically, you're not going to get to see very much if I load real weather today. So today we've got a few clouds, weather's hot, it looks looking okay, and we'll be taking off on runway 08 and literally flying pretty much due east for about 30 to 35 minutes. I'm going to fly fairly low. Maun's altitude, as you can see, in fact most of the airport's around 3,100 feet above sea level. We will be flying at 3,600 feet, so no more than about 600 feet above the ground. So you get a look at the terrain. I might climb a little higher at some point, but we will see how it goes. But I really want to try and get you a chance to look at the terrain. I've done this flight before. The terrain going out east to Maun is really quite different to what we've experienced over the Okavango Delta. And I will talk along the way about Nxai, a little bit about it. We will have some pictures of the camp, which I will show at the very end. And I will have, obviously, crediting the company that provided permission to show those pictures. And we'll also show you a map of some of the camp strips and showing the ones we visited so far. So the parking brake is off. Once again we try really hard not to take his head off. So the winds are light today. I have raised the cloud base a little higher again so that we can fly pretty much as we would expect to, and you still get a chance to see the terrain below. As you can see, we're back to flying the default Cessna 172 Classic. My control issues are pretty much solved at the moment. The controls are still sensitive, but I'm experimenting very slowly with changing the sensitivity settings to see if I can improve it further. But thankfully at least I can fly the thing, and we get to carry on exploring Flight Sim 2020 and the wonderful parts of southern Botswana, northern Botswana. I keep saying southern Botswana, but Maun is actually in northern Botswana, the Okavango Delta. So you look to the right, you can see the winds are pretty light. So we're going to take off on runway 08, which is the one normally in use. Weather's very bright today, so looking forward to this. Okay, runway's there. We just sort out a few things. Take off flaps. Okay, everything's set, so we line up runway 08, please. drive. I mean, long runways are useful out here because the temperature gets so hot during the middle of the day. And we're in the air. As you can see, my controls are still spiky, but not as bad as they were. So airborne at 11:57 Zulu. Flaps up. So there's the river, we're on track, 3,700 feet we're at now, so we're at 600 feet above the ground. Back at Maun there. I just think I'm going to go to 3,800 feet, I just feel a bit safer up there. Okay, so we're climbing gently up to 3,800 feet, which will give us a good 700 feet or so clearance, which I'm a bit happier with. So you can see straight away the terrain here is very different from what we saw in the Delta. We're heading east. It's now November, typically November to sort of December through to April is the rainy season, when this area gets a lot of grassland. Other times of the year it's quite sparse, almost desert-like. This time of the year you get the rains and the grass grows and the animals come. That's what's in the real world. So 60 miles out, let's talk about Nxai. So Nxai used to be a lake bed, used to be a huge lake. There's now a large salt depression called the Pan, and it's part of the much larger Magdadikadi Pan. I hope I probably said that right. That's in northeast Botswana. In the wet season, December through to April, or the rainy season, as I say, the grass comes, the animals come in their thousands. It's a seasonal home to large herds of zebra and wildebeest. Lots and lots of animals, thousands of them, come across the trails through the Pan to take advantage of the growth that occurs in the rainy season. They also have lots of acacia trees, and one of the features of Nxai is the baobab tree. There are 7 of them. They're huge, over 1,000 years old, 20 meters high, and they were discovered a long time ago by the painter Thomas Baines, and so they're sometimes called the Baines trees. He discovered them in 1862. Nxai, well, in 1970, an area of approximately 676 square kilometers around the Pan was declared a game reserve. Then in 1992, the Kudiakam Pan, a larger area, was added to increase the current area to 2,578 square kilometers, and then it became a national park. And within that park you have these legendary giant baobab trees, and they're a special species of tree. They're huge and they're known for their girth. So Nxai itself sits on the migration route between the Okavango Delta and the Hwange National Park in Zimbabwe, and many animals come to the Pans, as I've said, in the rainy season. They also come to give birth, and of course so do the predators. Nxai Camp was built in 2009, and it's the only lodge inside the park. It's open all year. It is accessible by road, but you need a 4x4. and in the summer months or the rainy season, it's a challenge. So obviously the paying guests going into the camp all flown in by air. The camp sits right in the middle of the Nxai Reserve, which, as you can see, as I've said, is really quite vast. So as you can see, we're sort of November, December now, and if the simulation is showing this correctly, you can see the vegetation has increased. We've still got areas around it that look almost a bit desert-like. But as you can see, the terrain is quite different from the sort of terrain we encountered in the Delta. And when we arrive at the airstrip, the main salt pan, what I can see from the scenery, is kind of north of the strip. So what I might do, and again I don't want a long video here, but I will edit this out, some of the bits, so that we can make it a reasonable length for you. But we'll fly over the strip and then we'll head over to the pan itself. And you can have a look at the sort of vegetation and the way it looks. Then we'll turn in for a landing. So as you can see, very different to the Okavango Delta and the Memory Game Reserve. Terrain looks different, still looks really interesting. I still find myself looking for animals. I haven't seen a single one in any of this, which is a bit of a letdown really. I mean, Botswana is known for its wildlife. Thousands of people before COVID fly in as tourists every year to be up close and personal with the wildlife and the game, elephants, lions, and in the camps you give way to the animals. So if you're going to your chalet and there's an elephant chewing from the tree, you wait for him to finish before you go past him, otherwise he gets a bit upset. Again, you can see terrain's really different, speckled with trees. Looking to the south now, southeast. Looks almost a bit, it looks really barren. Looks almost alien, doesn't it? So we're doing quite well. 45 miles to run, about 22 minutes. As I said, I will edit this a little bit so you don't have to sit for the full 22 minutes of sometimes featureless terrain, but I did want you to see the difference and what it looks like when we get to the camp. In my considered opinion, I still haven't found all of the camps, so there are lots of places listed within Flight Simulator, so I need to do some more exploring. But Nxai Strip to me looks to be the most realistic of all, and as I said, I flew out to it yesterday to flight test this little trip, and I was quite surprised to find the terrain different, and looking for the so-called pan itself, big salt pan, which at this time of the year, November, December, so it's supposed to be the rainy season, and supposed to be a lot greener, which it probably is, to tell you the truth. But I don't know how realistic what we're seeing outside the window is to the way the pan looks at this time of the year. I think it's pretty close. In the Bush Pilot series there was a section in one of the episodes where one of the chaps took his first flight in the Cessna, the 206, a much faster one with the retractable landing gear, and his GPS went down and he was trying to find his way. He actually did find his way to the camp, but we didn't get to see an awful lot of what the terrain looked like below the aircraft, so it's kind of difficult to judge whether this is accurate or not. What I can say is it's good. I think it's typically Africa. It's different from the Okavango Delta, just as I would expect it to be. As I say, we'll overfly the strip, then we'll head over to where the pan is, or the main area supposedly is. I looked at it yesterday, it does look really interesting. So we'll go down low over that area, and then we'll spring back for a landing into Nxai Pan, and there we will end the video with just some aerial shots around the pan, so this doesn't turn out to be another hour-long video. So I've not flown it this low before, but it's low enough to get you a better look at what the terrain looks like. So we're 700 feet above the ground, a little bit lower than I would like safety wise, but thankfully we don't have any weather as such that would cause any downdrafts that would drop us into the ground. But here you can see some of the bush roads that enable you to drive out from Maun should you want to, but it's a long, arduous task and the roads are not great. So in the wet season, this time of year, when it's rained, even in a 4x4 Land Rover, it's a challenge. Still no animals, but I don't know, maybe it's difficult to spot them at this altitude. I mean, you'd spot a herd of elephants, certainly. But individual animals, I guess a bit difficult to see. So we're doing okay, as you can see, making progress. 35 miles to run at 17 minutes. Terrain's already starting to vary, which is another thing I like about this simulation. Doesn't seem to be, because of the way it's drawing its data, we're not getting too much in the way of repeating textures as such, so to speak. And I still think it's an amazing place to fly over. I still have much to discover, and we'll do a handful of other videos, bush videos along the way, interspersed with some other goodies I've got lined up for you. As you can see, the ground's running past pretty quickly because we're quite low. This is probably the lowest I really want to be safety wise, but you get a better look at the vegetation and the landscape. One other thing, in the other video we talked about prices to come and stay at these places, and they generally are pretty expensive. However, Nxai Pan seems to have kind of bucked the trend. If you wanted to stay January 2021, at the moment the prices are around £530 UK per person, again based on minimum two sharing. But as you'll see by the pictures that I will post at the end of this video during the credits, another really nice luxurious camp, the only one in the Nxai Pan Reserve. So if you want to go and look around the Nxai Pan Reserve, and have a look at the animals as they come in for the seasonal grazing, and they herd themselves all the way up to Zimbabwe, then Nxai Pan Camp is the place to be, and the only place you can. It's actually split into two. They've got South Camp and the main camp. I'm not sure, to be honest, if those prices are lower because of the fact it's COVID and January 2021, who knows what's going to happen. I can't seem to find much information about what the prices were last year, for example. But yeah, you know, it's still £500 odd a person, all inclusive. And you will of course have to find your flights out to South Africa, to Johannesburg, and the cost of Air Botswana to fly you up to Maun, and your transfers in the bush plane. But I've done some searching on TripAdvisor. There are many reviews of Nxai Pan and other camps. Pretty much 98% of them positive. Tourists have gone for the experience of a lifetime into this part of the world, seen the wildlife and the game right up close and personal, and never to be experienced again. Trip of a lifetime in so many cases, from what I can see. But it is impressive out here. It's certainly somewhere worth exploring in Flight Simulator. And if you are lucky enough to do it in the real world after COVID's been sorted out and hopefully things get back to normal, from the bush pilot series that I've seen on TV and from the reviews and things, research that I've discovered, it seems to me like it's definitely going to be the trip of a lifetime and something you should do, and possibly take your best friend or lover along with you. So we've been making good time, ground speed of 120 odd knots, 23 miles, GPS is saying 11 minutes. I make it 26 minutes since we lifted off, so 30 to 40 minutes is probably about right. Probably a bit of a misnomer to say that the terrain is a bit featureless out here. It's not. It probably is compared to the Okavango Delta that we travelled over to get to Shatabi and Chiefs Island. So it is certainly very different and very featureless compared to that. But it's certainly a different type of terrain, and it's meant to be more kind of a desert terrain out here. It's more bland, if you will. But remember, we're early November, and late November, December through to April is the rainy season. So typically you'd be expecting thunderstorms and shed loads of rain dropping down. And this area would start to turn seriously green. As to how green it will get is another matter. But anyway. So I keep looking out for features that might be interesting to look at. And you can see these little areas here. Again, they really kind of bring the landscape to life, and I'm looking to see if I can see any mere semblance of an animal. I'm not getting an awful lot of luck. That could be a dried up water hole up there. Another nice little area, probably worth a look. A little building there, maybe. Yeah, a couple of buildings. Incidentally, interesting place if you ever experienced an engine failure. Life could get a little bit serious if you had an engine failure and you needed to find somewhere to make an emergency landing. With the condition of the roads, I wouldn't recommend it, certainly because you've got trees as well that are overhanging the roads. So if we had an engine failure now, it'd be a bit tough for me trying to find somewhere to land, and I wouldn't have a lot of time because I'm only 800 feet above the ground. But the advice is this, okay, so we're doing 121 knots airspeed, ground speed. Engine failure, first thing to do is convert speed to height, so you get as high as you can without stalling to give yourself more time, and then look for somewhere to land and attempt to make a good landing. And the other thing, once you've landed, whatever state the aircraft's in, you always stay with the aeroplane. You never go wandering off into the bush or trying to find your way out, even if you know your way. You stay with the aircraft, because at some point you'll be reported overdue and they'll send out a search party on the route, and hopefully you'll be found. And of course you have to worry about the animals out there as well, some of the predators. So you need to stay with the aircraft. closing in on the strip, and I'm pretty certain it's here. And I'm just trying to see if I can see the pan, which is beyond the strip. We've got 5 miles to go, hopefully, as we get over the strip. In fact, no, there's the strip there. There it is. And here is the pan. So again, we're going to heading mode. Leave the autopilot on so I can take some images for you. We'll overfly the strip, head out to the pan, try and get some close-up images of the bush, and then we'll turn back and we'll make a landing this way. Interesting again to see how the bush terrain changes yet again here. Definitely looking a little bit greener in some parts. Now there's a road where we might be able to effect a landing should we get an engine shutdown. Now there's a way you can get a better view of everything. Here's the strip. Nxai camp strip, and there is there's the salt pan basically. So 2 miles out, we're going to stay at this altitude and we'll go into heading mode. So that is Nxai airstrip. As you can see, it looks a lot more like a strip, bush strip, than the other ones we've visited so far. Got a turning area at both ends of the strip there. So now we're coming up on the on Nxai itself, the salt pan. This used to be a huge lake millions of years ago. It dried up, and what you have now is a pan. And this to me looks like the camp, or part of the camp, which looks as though it's been done pretty nicely. You actually didn't spot that yesterday. Yes, definitely. When you look at the pictures at the end of this video, you'll be able to see that that's pretty much a reasonable representation of the camp. Now, as you can see, the vegetation and the terrain looks really different, and it looks a lot more like a pan, as I would expect, except this time of the year it's a little bit greener. Because normally it would be raining. This is the rainy season. Vegetation looks great in my opinion, just looks beautiful. Again, can't see any, hang on. No, my mistake, they're trees. Thought for a minute we might have some animals out there. So we're coming towards the edge of the pan. Vegetation is improving a bit here. So 39 minutes to get here, so now we will come right the way around, head back to the airstrip. So we're in reverse course. Let's just bring the speed down a bit, shall we? And as you can see, there is a big difference in the way this terrain looks compared with the Okavango Delta itself. So there's the airstrip. So we try and get a close-up look at the camp itself this time. Yeah, there it is. So this is Nxai Camp. There's the airstrip. So as you can see, people will fly in by the strip and then be taken by road from the strip into the camp to spend however long they wanted to spend. Looks like a beautiful setting. It would be wonderful to sit here and watch the sun go down. So let's take the autopilot off and we will go in for a landing. So I want 60 knots, please. Okay, 60 knots. Little bit of an uphill slope. Nice one. Not bad at all. Try and stay in the middle of the strip. So we go to the end and you can turn around and backtrack and you can see maps up. So I make that 45 minutes from off to on, and that's including a quick tour of the salt pan itself. So not too bad at all, not too bad at all. Again, the vegetation looks great. You look at the vegetation there on the edge of the strip, the trees, the growth. It does look good, it looks realistic and just gives you the feeling of being there in a way that Flight Simulator hasn't done before now. But I hope you're getting some enjoyment out of this. I love flying here. So much to see and so much yet to see. And welcome to Nxai. So shut the engine down. Okay, so welcome to Nxai. That was 45 minutes or so. Another interesting fact, sometimes if they stay overnight here, which some of the pilots do, if they have to ferry somebody out very late in the afternoon, obviously after 6:15, 6:30 sunset they can't fly. So they'll spend the night at the camp along with the guests. And this is the bush. You have to remember the animals are inquisitive all over the place. So the aircraft gets tied down and they go out and they grab some branches and they put the branches around the wheels because the hyenas like to come across at night and nibble the rubber and damage the tyres. So a whole set of things you'd have to plan for when you're out here. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. Next video, or the next bush video, will be a surprise. I'm hoping to release next weekend also an adventure video in P3D, so we'll see. But again, thanks for joining me. If you like this sort of thing, please like and subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of videos that I make. Costs you nothing at all, takes a few seconds, but as I constantly say, it helps my channel to grow and hopefully helps me get a few more subscribers. This is purely for fun. I make no money from it. It's just something I've enjoyed doing for many years, and I'm trying to show you, the viewer or the other desktop pilot, something a little different. I have a website, virtualairlinepilot.org. Feel free to visit that, find out a bit more about me. I have a blog page. I haven't been updating it a lot recently, but I'm trying to keep that going. And anyway, I will see you in the next video. Have a great weekend and thank you for joining me. Take care, bye for now.